Well, good evening, Pleasant Hill. This is Skip Hobson here, and I'm sitting down with a kind of a welcome to Pleasant Hill interview with our new pastor, Andy Curtis. And we've sent out a questionnaire for people to send questions that we could ask Andy. And so have Andy here, and we're going to ask him a few questions. We received a whole line of questions from Jan Fulmer. So Jan must have been one of those kids in school that ask a lot of questions. So first, I'd like to thank Andy for being here. Welcome you to Pleasant Hill. We're glad you're here. We look forward to getting to know you and for you to get to know us. With that, anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for everyone that's made our family feel so welcome. We are genuinely excited and blessed to be here. We feel called to be here at Pleasant Hill, and we're enjoying getting to know everybody, and we're looking forward to partnering together in ministry for a long time to come.
Good, good. Well, Jan is a retired school teacher, and so she's very thorough. And Jan would like to start out with what she has titled the early years. And her first question is, she would like to know, because she heard you play the saxophone, were you in the high school band and where?
I was in the high school band as a saxophone player at Northwest Whitfield High School, which was right outside of Dalton, Georgia. I also majored in music education at Jacksonville State University on saxophone. Jazz emphasis was my major during my time there for 3 years.
Good deal, good deal. All right, our next question is, what were you like as a child and a teenager?
Absolutely perfect. I was a great teenager. Well, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, as all children and teenagers do. As a teen, things were a little bit different. I had to grow up kind of quick. When I was 14, my dad split. He walked out on our family, and he had built a business to be very successful, and he took all of his money with him and left me and my mom and my sister just to get by however we could. So at the age of 14, I had to grow up pretty fast. I had to learn how to do a whole lot of things and not to become the man of the house. There are some things that just aren't doable at the age of 14, but my teenage years were not just figuring out how to be a good teenager, but also how to make some adult decisions because I didn't have that higher male influence in my life. So that's kind of my teen years. In other respects, I was very much a typical teenager. I was in the high school band, and I had a lot of friends in the high school band, and we did stuff that high schoolers do. We played at the football games, and when it wasn't football season, we went to the movies and hung out, and a lot of us went to church together. So, it was good times.
Okay. How did you meet your wife, Melanie?
Okay. So I attended Jacksonville State University from 1995 to 1998 on a music scholarship. In 1998, a group of us had formed a band, and we left school to play professionally full-time. And so we began touring all over the country. And actually, Melanie was friends with one of my cousins. And she came to see my band play a concert at a venue in Jacksonville. And then we played shortly later at a venue in Birmingham, and that's where Melanie was from. She's from Homewood. So she came to that venue as well. And that one is the one she caught my eye at because it was a small venue. You could see everyone that was out there. And I had my cousin introduce me to her. The problem was I was seeing someone else at the time. And so time went by, and then that relationship I was in ended. And so I picked up the phone and called my cousin. And I said, hey, we got a gig in Birmingham in a couple of weeks. I would like for you to make sure that this Melanie girl that you introduced me to a few weeks back is at this concert. She said, okay. So I called my best friend and I said, hey, my cousin's going to make sure Melanie is there. You make sure she stays until we take our first break so I can ask her out on a date. So we were playing at the Superior Grill right off of Highway 280, and she stayed till the first break, and I asked her out, and she said yes, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Was it love at first sight?
You know, you can't say yeah to that. One reason, because Melanie will tell you she remembers coming to the first concert in Jacksonville and seeing me there. But in that particular venue, there was about 200 to 300 people in the venue, and you couldn't pick out everybody. So I don't remember meeting her at that venue, but I remember seeing her at the Birmingham show, and she caught my attention. I can't say it was love at first sight. I was seeing somebody else at the time. That would not be proper. However, once that relationship ended, I will tell you, I never asked another person out.
Where did you get married?
We got married at Third Presbyterian Church in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay. All right. What is something funny or cute that one of your children has done that you can tell that sticks out?
My kids absolutely hate to be sermon illustrations. They've told me time and time again, do not use us as sermon illustrations. But I do have some stories that I can share in a context such as this. I'll tell one on each of them, just to be fair.
Okay.
My oldest daughter, Lexi, started acolyting at the church I was serving on staff at when she was in first grade. So at that church, Asbury United Methodist Church in Fort Payne, Alabama, I was serving as the minister of youth and music. And I was behind the piano. I was playing the introit for that service, and she walks in as a short first grader with the acolyte wand, and the wick was lit, but she didn't have her glasses on. So she stepped up to the chancel area where the altar table is set and the candles are, but it's elevated higher than her head. And she takes the acolyte wand and begins swatting at the candles. And I'm behind the piano playing, and I see this flame flickering. The fringe on the paraments almost caught flame. The senior pastor comes around, grabs her by the shoulder, takes her up next to the pulpit, grabs the candles and pulls it to her so that she could light the candles. And that was an interesting experience from her, trying to keep it together as a dad, as someone who saw the comedy in it but didn't want the paraments burnt while I'm trying to play the introit as well. That was a pretty funny story on her. Casey, my middle daughter, she marches to the beat of her own drum. She is my rough and tumble kid. When she was little, her favorite toy was dirt and worms, and she loves monkeys, and that's just kind of her personality. She just marches to the beat of her own drum. You never know what's going to fly out of her mouth. You never know what she's thinking about, but she's a genuine kid. Good. And she's a lot of fun. Maddie, my youngest, is my tender-hearted one. And back in 2018, I was serving as associate pastor at Jacksonville First United Methodist Church, and we were doing VBS, and I was about to move to a different church. And at this VBS, we had made a deal with people, whoever brought the most money for the offering, the missional offering, would get to put a cream pie in my face and the senior pastor's face. So on the final night of VBS, one of my youth group members at Jacksonville First got to put a cream pie in my face. And as he was walking up to the stage with the cream pie in his hand, Maddie stands up in front of this whole VBS, 300 kids, and says, "You better not touch my daddy." And she made him feel so bad that he didn't want to cream pie me in the face, but he finally did it. And as everyone was leaving and I was shaking everybody's hands, she came and stood right in front of me. And she would tell people as they were walking out, she said, "You better not touch my daddy."
Goodness gracious. Protective.
She is. She's protective, and she's tender-hearted of everything that she loves. So they're all interesting. You know, all kids are different, and they're all intriguing in their own way.
Good. What and where was your first sermon?
My first sermon was in Fort Payne at Asbury United Methodist, where I was serving on staff. That's actually where I answered my call to pastoral ministry. I was on full-time ministry staff there. It would have been June of 2009 when I preached my first sermon there.
Okay. And I already know the answer. Jan Fulmer would like to know, is it Alabama or Auburn? and I already know it's Notre Dame, and your wife is Auburn.
That's right.
And what do you do in your spare time? What are your hobbies and interests?
Well, as clergy and as a dad of 3, there's not a whole lot of spare time, but things that I do like to do, I love to read.
Okay.
When there are sports going on, I do love a good football game. I love hockey, love to watch it. I like baseball. I'm a Braves fan, so I do enjoy those kind of things. I do enjoy spending time with my kids and with my family. I am kind of protective of trying to take time away. If you're in ministry, it can become an all-consuming thing. I do kind of pull away sometimes intentionally so that I can spend time with them, so that my family doesn't feel like they're getting leftovers.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I try to be intentional about with this thing that we call spare time.
Right. That should be. Well, Jan wants to know, do you cook?
Yeah, I do.
And she wants to know what your specialty is.
When needed, I cook. As I said, when my dad left when I was 14, my mom then went back to school to learn to be a nurse, and she was going to school at weird times, and so she told me I had to learn to cook, and so I just had to learn to cook. And I don't really have any specialties. You know, I can grill a good hot dog. You know, just general food. I promise you this, it won't be gourmet, but you won't starve at my house if I'm there.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I would travel to the United Kingdom, especially where John Wesley walked, and especially I would love to visit Ireland.
Okay. Okay, and see here, let me see. If you had one redo and could go back and change one decision you have made, what one thing in your life would you change? Well, that's a question for everybody.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not much for hindsight, because sometimes it can just bring up some anxiety about what could have been and should have been. And I think God's grace is present with us even in some of those times when we make mistakes. And even in Joseph's story, and Joseph told his brothers, "What you meant for evil, God turned to good." I think God can do those kind of things. But I guess if there was one thing that I would change, just for me personally, it just after my first year at Jacksonville State University, I still had on the table a half-tuition music scholarship to the University of Notre Dame. And I had started playing with the band that I had mentioned to you at that time, and I decided to stay in Jacksonville so I could continue playing with that band because I thought there would be a career in it. However, I had the opportunity to go up to South Bend and go to school there, and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that would be the one thing that I would change.
Okay.